Welcome to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Bob Dancer is America's premier video poker writer and teacher. He's written 10 books, including Video Poker for the Intelligent Beginner and the best-selling $1 Million Video Poker. He helped develop the computer software Video Poker for Winners, and in 2004 he was inducted into the Video Poker Hall of Fame. Richard Munchkin has been a professional advantage player for over 30 years and is in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. His book, Gambling Wizards, Conversations with the World's Greatest Gamblers, is a testament to the many ways you can succeed at gambling. The goal of the show is that you'll be a more knowledgeable gambler tomorrow than you were yesterday. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good evening. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest tonight is Mohan Srivastava for a repeat visit. Mohan has done very well predicting how to beat the lotteries. And returning by popular demand, we'll be talking to Mo in a few minutes. In about 3 weeks, there's going to be a big fight here in Las Vegas, Mayweather-Pacquiao. It's gotten news interesting. What have you heard about this, Richard, outside of the fight itself?
Well, so the big news is, it's going to be the most expensive pay-per-view, and they're talking $99. But the big news is really that MGM has blocked the other casinos from showing the fight, which is really, has got to really piss off Wynn and Venetian and Caesars because, they want to invite all their high rollers to come, and usually they set up a big party with a big screen where they can watch the fight, and they're not going to be able to show it. Only the MGM properties are going to be able to show it. Now, I was talking about having a party at my house to watch the fight, and I don't even know, because I live in Las Vegas, if I'm going to be able to get the fight here. I called DirecTV, and they told me that they weren't going to be able to tell me if I could get the fight yet, and that they wouldn't be able to tell me until the last week of April.
Which is 1 week before the fight.
Right, so party invitations are going to go out kind of last minute if that indeed is it. So
yeah, I'm surprised MGM's doing this because Caesars holds fights too. And what goes around comes around. And so usually the different casinos have been able to cooperate on what's good for Las Vegas. This is a rare situation where a casino is standing up and me only.
Yeah, maybe, maybe if the money if the price is right, they will change their mind. Maybe they're just doing this as sort of playing hardball, waiting to try to get a bigger payday.
So Steve Wynn, if he comes up with $250,000, maybe they'll let him show the show?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
I wonder what Elaine would say. All right, let's talk to our guest. Mohan Srivastava is an MIT-trained geologist who professionally is employed as a consultant who looks and he predicts where there are natural resources below the ground, and he figures this out by looking at features above the ground. He was able to use some of those same statistical techniques to beat various lotteries. Mohan Srivastava, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Now, he was originally on this show on July 14th of 2014. Maybe 17th. It was July 17th. Yeah. And that was a particularly good show, and I encourage you to go listen to it if you haven't listened to it. Tonight, we're pretty much going to be talking about other things that weren't on that show. So if you think he's interesting tonight, then he was probably also interesting last July. So when you were on 9 months ago, we expected you to be back in 2 weeks. And for reasons better left unsaid, that didn't happen. When we left the last show, we asked you the following question, and you promised to address it in the next show. If somebody has a local lottery and they gathered up a bunch of tickets, are you willing, for a fee, to tell them whether you believe the lottery is beatable or not? And if so, what would it take?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I've done it for a number of people. I actually have never charged a fee. There have been journalists that want to see that the same flaw exists in other games, and I've shown them that it does. Occasionally, I get calls from people who are just trying to get an edge in lottery, and I'm happy to talk to them and give them my advice on what can be done. But it's never quite got to the point of me hiring myself out as a consultant to help someone break the lottery.
You seem to be missing out on something.
You may start getting more calls and emails after this show.
Yes.
So let me ask you this: so we're talking about scratch-off lotteries. These are the games that seem to have this potential to be beaten. What percentage of scratch-off lottery games are beatable?
Well, the ones that I focused on are the ones that have visible imaging on the ticket. So it's like a tic-tac-toe game or a crossword game or something where when you buy the ticket, you're looking at letters or numbers or symbols or something on the face of the ticket that you get to see before you scratch off the latex coating. And often there are patterns that you can identify in those symbols that help you sort winners from losers. And that's a different category of instant scratch ticket than the other kind, which is just essentially a big latex coating, and you scratch it off and it says you won or you lost and how much you won. So those kind of, let's just call them simpler tickets, I don't have any thoughts on how to exploit those. But the ones with visibly distinct symbols on them are actually the most popular games in the instant scratch business, the bingo games and those kind of things. And they're popular because they're fun to play. The player has a sense of engagement. They get the feeling that they're playing a game and getting closer and closer to winning. So my guess is that easily over half of the tickets out in North America, the instant scratch tickets, are those visible imaging tickets. And all of the popular games are in that category. Of those visible imaging tickets, off the top of my head, I would say about half of them probably are exploitable. Not always to the level of success that I enjoyed with that tic-tac-toe game, where I could separate winners from losers with 95% success. So sometimes your success rate is down around 70 or 75%. But you can get an edge if you study the patterns.
So just I went and looked at the tickets in California. I think there were about 20 different games in California. And I think only 3 or 4 fell into the category of being potentially, exploitable. But I don't know if that's indicative of the rest of the country. But I was actually kind of surprised. I mean, I knew nothing about scratch-off tickets prior to that. I was surprised that there are scratch-off tickets that cost as much as $50 a ticket. I mean, the stakes can get, pretty high.
Sure. Joan Ginther down in Texas, when she won those big jackpots, she was playing some of those high-stakes games, the $50, $100 tickets. So yeah, there are some serious gamblers who like those games and who do well at them.
Now, maybe we should refresh our listeners as to who Joan Ginther is and her story. Do you want to do
Sure.
that?
Joan won an instant scratch lottery in Texas, the big prize in that. And that's, by itself, that's not remarkable. But then she won again in the same lottery, and I believe she did it a third time. pretty much back to back to back. So it's kind of like lightning striking 3 times in the same place. Some people shrug and say she's lucky. Other people say there's just no way anyone gets that lucky.
Especially if you add a piece to the puzzle that she happens to have a PhD in mathematics.
From Stanford, yeah. She's pretty good with statistics and numbers. And my strong instinct is that someone like that doesn't just get lucky. I think they get smart.
What do you think she was doing?
My thoughts about that have changed over the years. If you'd asked me that a couple years ago, I would have guessed that she had figured out some way to predict which packet of tickets the high prize ticket would be in. When the Lottery Corporation distributes the tickets, they sell them in shrink-wrapped packs of 100 or 200 or something like that, and they send them to their retail outlets. And if she could have figured out the packet number, then you would need some way to figure out the packet distribution pattern. And in doing that, you could count on the state being lazy and actually just using the same distribution pattern as they used last time. So with a bit of work in terms of collecting historical information, you might be able to zero in on where the specific packet you're looking for is located. In the past couple of years, I've had some discussions with a journalist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, a guy called Peter Mucha, who has taken a close look at Joan's story. He explained to me that in those high stakes instant scratch games, the kind of tickets you were describing, because they're kind of specialized tickets, they don't actually get distributed in quite the same way as the $2 and $3 tickets do. And stores, retail outlets, can request packets when they need them. And what seems to have happened in the case of Joan, who lived near Bishop, Texas, is that right before she would win the prize, the store where she was buying her tickets would place a huge order for packets. So weeks and weeks would go by, and they would have 1 or 2 packets, just nothing remarkable. They were like any other store in the state. And then for some reason, they would order huge numbers of tickets, and she would buy them all. And somewhere in that set, she would find the high prize she was looking for. So my best guess now is she had some way of, it was kind of a timing thing, that she knew that the winning prize would come out kind of a third of the way into the game, or 40% of the way into the game, or something like that.
Well, I have a theory about this.
Yeah.
At least the games in California, I haven't checked Texas, but the games in California, you can go on the lottery website, and they will tell you exactly how many tickets have been printed, how many have been sold, and how many of the prizes have been collected. So if you just wait, at a certain point, if no one has hit the big prize, it becomes an overlay. And if you could just buy every remaining ticket in the game, you would turn a profit. Now, the danger is that somebody has bought the winning ticket and either didn't realize it and threw it away, or has the winner but hasn't turned it in to collect the big prize.
Wants the divorce to go through first before they cash it.
The what?
They want their divorce to go through first
exactly.
before they cash it.
They want to move to Switzerland first. But so you would run that risk, but otherwise you can just, at some point realize that there's a that there's a big profit to be had and buy up a lot of tickets. I also want to say Joan lives in Las Vegas, and if you listen to the show, we'd love to have you come on, Joan.
Well, a lot of people would love to hear from her. I would listen to that show.
Well, good. Now, last show, Richard mentioned 3 or 4 times that he's thinking about buying a 7-Eleven and selling these lotteries using the kind of information that you talked about, and during off hours finding the good tickets for himself and selling all the rest of them to the suckers. Now, he didn't quite phrase it that way, but now since then he's moved to Nevada. We don't have lotteries here, so I'm pretty sure he hasn't bought this liquor store. But let's assume there are some, pick your word, clever or unscrupulous owners out there.
Now, wait, why would that be unscrupulous?
Clever is what I said.
Okay.
So, and you were hired by the lottery to help ferret out these clever owners. How would you go about doing that?
Well, to begin with, I wouldn't be hired by the lottery. They don't like me very much. I've tried to offer my services, and we just never quite seem to see eye to eye on that.
You're a troublemaker.
If I was trying to help them, there's a few things you could look at. One would be, you might have a retailer who's really dumb and who just cashes their own tickets. And you could pick that up pretty quickly. If a particular retailer is winning lots of small and medium prizes, there's something worth looking at there. They should not be any more lucky than an average player. But let's suppose they're a little bit smart and they realize they have to kind of somehow launder these things and find someone else to handle them, which does seem to have happened in certain states. The state auditor in Massachusetts once pointed out to the state that must be happening in Massachusetts. So if they're doing that, then there's a couple things you could look at. One would be the percentage of winning tickets redeemed in different categories. And it's the same kind of information that we were talking about a few minutes ago, that daily update they do of total number of tickets sold, total number of $3 winners, $5 winners, $10 winners. And if someone is being smart about it, they are not going to skim the break-even tickets. So if it's a $3 game and the prize is $3, you're just wasting your time buying those tickets. You would avoid the break-even tickets.
If you can
and you would
identify
avoid the losing tickets. And so what that would create is a relative over-redemption of the positive value tickets, the 5s, the 10s, the 20s. And I've looked at those kind of statistics in some states, and you can clearly see exactly the pattern that you would expect if some people were playing the game to their advantage. Specifically, you can see that the break-even tickets are under-redeemed relative to the total numbers sold, and the positive value tickets are over-redeemed. And so someone in those states has figured out a way to avoid break-even tickets. And the people that have the best crack at that are the retailers.
But, I mean, we don't want to talk about helping the casino anyway. We should be talking more about how we take advantage of these things. So,
Sure.
But to me, one of the most interesting parts of your story is the reaction of the lottery, which was basically, we don't want to hear about this, go away.
Yeah. I don't think they have any reason to care about flaws in instant scratch games. And the reason I say that is that what the state and provincial lotteries are an arm of the government. They're an alternate revenue generating mechanism for the government. It saves the states and provinces from having to raise taxes, and to the tune of billions of dollars. So as long as they provide that alternate revenue stream, they are serving the wishes of their masters. There's nothing in the foundational legislation or the articles of incorporation or the creation of the lotteries that requires them to run fair games. It's just not there. What they are required to do is get revenue to the government. And as long as they do that, they're doing what they were set up to do. The last time that I met with the Ontario Lottery, this was back in 2011, they were a bit upset with some of the media coverage around my story, and they asked me to come in and have a chat with them. That month, it was February 2011, at the beginning of that month, Wired magazine had run an article on that tic-tac-toe story. And when I met with the Lottery Corporation, they explained to me something that I didn't know until that meeting, and that's the ticket sales, instant scratch ticket sales in Ontario spiked immediately after that Wired magazine article came out.
It's like
and
when
for
people
them,
read Beat
as
the
a
Deal.
lottery corporation, that's good news. They love selling tickets. That's how they get revenue to the government. And so in a perverse way, it actually serves their mandate for the public to have a perception of a flaw, because then there's all kinds of people out there who think they're smart enough to exploit that flaw, and ticket sales go up. So the lottery corporations have no vested interest and no requirement to fix flaws.
But if the same groups of people keep winning, which would be the case if advantaged players were on it, and the media gets word of that, isn't that a public relations problem?
Yeah, but they've weathered those disasters. There was the case in Massachusetts of a lottery where there were syndicates set up, well-funded syndicates, like judges and lawyers and doctors were pouring money into these groups that were exploiting a flaw in one of their lotteries. And in that game, about 6 groups of people made off with about 75% of the winnings in that one game. It was a game called Cash Windfall. And when the Boston Globe revealed that, the state lottery kind of shrugged and said, well, everyone's playing by the rules here, and it's a voluntary system. Like, if you don't like it, don't play. And there was no huge backlash. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of egg on their face. They would rather not have it, but it's not enough to make them change the way they do business.
You know, I always thought that horse racing should work the same way. In a parimutuel system, they're just raking their money off the top. So the more money that gets bet, the better it is for the jockey club. And so they should be happy when professionals start playing, because the handle goes up and their revenue goes up. But, you know, for some reason, they can't stand the idea that professionals are winning money. And the same thing is true with progressive slot machines in a casino, right? The casino they have to give that money away in the progressive jackpot.
That's different.
Why is it different?
It's different because if the slot is driven up by ploppies, dumb players,
yeah,
the house is making an extra 2 or 3% along the way because these people are making really bad mistakes. They're playing
not on a slot machine.
Well, okay, on video poker machines, on their video poker progressives.
Okay, but on a slot machine,
at least some of them are playing short coin, so that would be the only kind. You do get people playing megabucks for short coin, which has got to be the dumbest bet in the world.
Right, but if you have a progressive and now it reaches a certain level, and you suddenly have a group of professionals who come in and start playing that machine as fast as they can play it, you know, the house is still making their 5% on every pull. They should love those guys. And instead they throw them out.
Another reason they do it is because they're regular customers who lose $10,000 a month, etc., are getting shut out of it, and they're annoyed. And so they want to keep their regular customers happy, and there's some logic there. Although as a player, I would rather to be allowed to play when I want to. I can see the casino's point of view on this.
And the interesting difference between what the casinos do and what the state and provincial lotteries do is the state and provincial lotteries have a monopoly. And so in Massachusetts, sure, there were a lot of people playing cash windfall who were kind of irritated that a group of well-funded investors was making off with millions of dollars. But what choice did they have? If you're going to play the lottery in Massachusetts, you play the Mass Lottery. And so they have the additional advantage that casinos don't have of a monopoly. And you can't just walk down the strip a little bit and go to a different casino.
Now, you apparently United States lottery people in Canada aren't real fans of you, but you once did some work for a Belgian lottery. What was that all about?
It was actually for a Dutch magazine, kind of like their version of Scientific American. They had seen the lottery story from North America, and they were curious about whether the same kind of flaw existed in Europe. And so what they asked me to do is to do what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, that they would buy a bunch of tickets from one of the Belgian lotteries. It was a bingo game. And they would send them to me, and they wanted me to analyze them and explain if there was any exploitable flaw there. So I sent them back my analysis, and I explained to them how I would be able to identify the winning ticket. It was a €50,000 top prize in that game. And so I showed them how you could identify the €50,000 ticket if it came across your desk without scratching anything off. The magazine passed my notes on to the Belgian lottery.
Uh-huh.
And the Belgian lottery passed them on to their printer. And the printer responded and said, "We know Mohan Srivastava.
He's that troublemaker from Toronto."
Well, no, they're not from Toronto, but they were the printer who printed that tic-tac-toe game in 2003.
Uh-huh.
So here I was the bad penny showing up again.
Uh-huh.
And they said, "Yeah, we know Mohan. Yeah, he makes all these ridiculous claims." They conceded that my procedure would work, but their defense was, it's a needle in a haystack problem. Okay, so if Mohan comes across the €50,000 ticket, he'll know it, but good luck in finding it. It could be anywhere in Belgium, and you're never going to find it. And so they kind of conceded that even 8 years after I broke the tic-tac-toe game, they were still printing and distributing flawed games, and they were taking refuge in the needle in the haystack argument. So the flaw is still there. Variations on the flaw are still there. And if anyone can figure out how to beat the needle in the haystack, then you can take advantage of those games.
Well, the needle in the haystack defense sounds pretty strong to me. Is it?
I think it may have been strong about 10 or 15 years ago. But I think with smartphones now, with smartphone technology, I think if someone wanted to write an app
when I run my
you take a picture and send that image to some central server, you could get back a push notification message within 30 seconds that would tell you whether or not it was a winner. And so the widespread use of cell phones equipped with cameras, I think, beats the needle in the haystack.
I think the needle in the haystack argument is fine until a guy shows up with a giant electromagnet he runs over the haystack. And, it's just going to take somebody to start finding the needles, and then they'll have to readdress their thinking about it.
Okay. What is cryptography, and how is beating the lottery similar to cryptography?
Cryptography is the science of creating coded messages and decoding them. So, you may have seen in the past year or so that the movie The Imitation Game, Alan Turing and the work done at Bletchley Park to break the German codes in World War II. That's an example of cryptography. The Germans encoded their messages so that if they were intercepted, the receiver, the British in this case, would not know what they were reading. And cryptography goes back to Roman times. Julius Caesar used encoded messages in the army when he was leading the Romans into France. And so cryptography, there's a couple of ways that it resembles trying to break the lottery. There's kind of a high-level way where you can think about an instant scratch card as a coded message. You can think of each card as having hidden under its latex coating a little message that says, I'm a $3 winner, or I'm a $5 winner, or I'm a $100 winner, or I'm a $50,000 winner. That's the message that you cannot see. That's the coded message. And what you have access to is all of that symbolic information that's on the face of the card. And the challenge is to see if from the information that you can see, can you break the code? Can you actually read the hidden message or the message that they tried to hide from you? So that's kind of a high-level 30,000-foot view of why they're similar. There's a much more specific way in which they're similar. In cryptography, in modern cryptography, they depend on computer-based random number generators. You can make some very strong and difficult-to-break codes if you can have the computer randomize the encryption for you. And the lotteries also use random number generators. And in fact, they use the same random number generators that cryptographers use. And so there's a huge body of technical literature in the cryptography side about how to reverse engineer a random number generator, how to figure out how a computer is trying to scramble things. And a lot of that literature is usable on the lottery side to try and sort out how the winning and losing ticket patterns are organized. Because the printers or the lottery corporations that hire the printers, they do not want those tickets to actually be truly random. They need to tightly control the prize payout so that they can get their revenue to the government. They're not really running a game of chance. They're running a game in which they've dialed in exactly which tickets are going to be the prize-winning ones. And so in that attempt to lock in exactly the prize distribution, they use random number generators to distribute a fixed number of prizes over a certain group of tickets. And that creates the possibility of reverse engineering the random number generator, as cryptographers would do, and using that to exploit the game. When I first heard Joan Ginther's story, I suspected that she had worked out something similar to that, because I had spoken to a graduate student in mathematics from the University of Texas at Austin. He had contacted me to propose exactly what we were just talking about. He had worked out a way to reverse engineer the random number generator being used for instant scratch games. And so when shortly after that I heard Joan Ginther's story, I thought, wait a second, she's in Texas too. And it's always kind of been tucked in the back of my mind that maybe someone actually worked that trick and did it in Texas.
Now, in national security, to help break these codes, they use these supercomputers that are really, really fast, that they can figure out an infinite loop in 2 minutes. Do you need a supercomputer to solve lottery stuff like this?
No. The random number generators they use are in the simpler class of random number generators. And I don't think the lottery industry, the printers that service the lottery industry and do the programming for them, I don't think they have thought as carefully about the random number generation as their cousins over in cryptography have thought about it.
There are lots of cases where a problem happens, some one-of-a-kind situation, and so the lottery has to make a decision about how to handle a certain cases, and it seems like they invariably make up really terrible things right on the spot that are against the player's interest. Do you have some examples somewhere in this area?
Oh, sure, yeah, I agree with you. They just seem to have a knack for shooting themselves in the foot. It's like they hire people that just have bad public relations instincts. When you hear about some of the decisions they make, you think, well, what were they thinking? I can give you a couple. There's a case here, again in Ontario. I live in Ontario, so I'm more familiar with the stuff here. But by way of giving some context to this, I'll point out that the number of printers who service the instant scratch business is very small. There's really only 3 that do that in North America, and they service all the states and provinces. So even though I keep on talking about Ontario games, the same printers that service Ontario service California and New York and other jurisdictions. So it's not peculiar to this province that I happen to live in. But what happened here in Ontario, this is going back maybe 4 years now, 5 years, was a guy came to them with a winning ticket, a high prize winning ticket, top prize winning ticket, instant scratch. And they confirmed that it was a ticket printed by their printer. It was a bona fide ticket that this guy had bought in a store. They also knew from before the release of the game that there were a number of printing flaws. So the printer, when they provided this shipment to the Lottery Corporation, said, by the way, there's been a couple of mistakes in the printing. And so there's a small batch of tickets that are kind of out of control here. Like they're not part of the prize-winning distribution that we tried to control. And so the Lottery Corporation at that point had the choice to not distribute the game. They knew there was a very small number of tickets that were flawed, that hadn't gone according to plan, and that some of those might create additional top prizes. So this guy buys a ticket, turns out to be a top prize winner. They take a look at the ticket and they think, oh, wow, this is one of the ones the printer warned us about. It's actually a flawed top prize winning ticket. And they denied his claim for the prize. And I was astonished. I thought, wait a second, you're admitting it's one of your tickets. And you knew beforehand that this might happen. You were warned by the printer it might happen. And yet you chose to run the game. So pay the guy his money. I mean, it's your fault. It's not his. But they didn't. They said, no, it's a flawed ticket. You've got a flawed ticket. Sorry for that. And they offered him some sucker deal for, they gave him, a couple $1,000 to make him go away.
And he did? He didn't sue?
No, he did. He settled for a far smaller payout, like a fraction, like less than 1/20th of what he should have got.
He clearly didn't know Bob Nersessian.
Well, but the other thing the Ontario Lottery Corporation was infamous for, this is going back about 12 years now, was they lawyer up and beat the crap out of people when they decide to go to legal war. I mean, there's that old that retired guy who they actually wrote internal memos saying he's probably going to die before we have to pay him out. So
we thought casinos were bad.
If you're on the small guy side of that fight, you might think twice about how much money you want to spend fighting it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the other one that slightly different, because it wasn't an instant scratch game, it was a numbers game. Guy goes in, there's a big prize coming up. He has to buy his ticket by 8 o'clock. So he's in the store, 5 minutes to 8. He buys his ticket, discovers a couple days later he's got top prize winning ticket, goes to claim it, and it's pointed out to him that the clock on the machine had rolled over past 8 o'clock, and that what he had actually done was bought a ticket for the next week, but by mere seconds. And until it was pointed out to him that his ticket actually said that it was the next week, he had never noticed it because his intention was to buy it for that week. And the guy that sold him the ticket thought he was selling him a ticket for that night's draw. Now, in that case, I'm a little bit more sympathetic to the Lottery Corporation because the ticket was printed, and right on the ticket it made it clear it was for the next week. But there's something a bit cheesy about being off by 2 seconds because the clock on the lottery terminal had just rolled over past 8. Like they should do something like lock it out for 15 minutes, like between 8 and 8:15 it won't issue tickets, and so that people are absolutely clear which week they bought the ticket for.
Yeah.
And even if he bought it at 7:45, the machine might have said 8 o'clock and 2 seconds.
Sure. It could have. It was a frustrating situation for him because he and the seller were sure they had bought and sold a ticket for that night, but they hadn't.
So for our listeners, is there any way for people to take advantage of this in a small way? Or is this kind of a big project that would require buying a liquor store? And but is it possible for a listener to go buy 10 tickets and do anything with them?
Sure. There's some things that can be done. The idea that you presented earlier, tapping into the information that comes off of the daily updates from virtually all of the lotteries now have that information. You can figure out that some lotteries have got to the point where the expected value of a ticket is higher than its price. And that's just a case of being patient and diligent and keeping on looking. The other kind of thing that's I know that some people do it, and this actually goes, it's easier again for the retailers to do it. I need to explain something about the way the packets work. Several years ago, this is going back about 20 years ago, retailers started to complain to their lottery corporations, their distributors, that they were getting unlucky packets. Because they would sell these things and they'd only get 2 or 3 winners in a packet of 200, and so they kind of felt they were being given dud packets. And so what happened, I think it was in the 1990s, across the lottery industry, was that the printers figured out a way to guarantee a minimum prize structure within each packet. So within a packet of 200 tickets, there has to be at least, 25 winners or something like that. and that kind of, the notion was they were kind of leveling the playing field, and now the distributors could say to their retail outlets, you are going to get a guaranteed minimum out of every packet. There is no such thing as a dud packet. So now you're a retailer, and you've opened up a packet, and people have come into your store, and they've been buying tickets, and you're aware that there's only 50 tickets left in the packet. But you're also aware there's only been 5 prizes claimed. And so why don't you just buy the other 50? Because there's a guaranteed minimum, and the remaining prizes kind of have to be in the stuff that's left.
But how would you know there's only 5 claimed? Do they have to claim them at the same store they bought them, or can they claim them anywhere?
They can claim them anywhere, but then the distributors keep track of, and the Lottery Corporation keeps track of how many prizes have been redeemed from each packet. Like, it's actually part of the barcode that they know which packet it came out of. And so you could ask your distributor for that information. You could ask them to let you know how many prizes have been claimed. Because for a lot of retail outlets, it's actually part of their bonus system. As retailers, they get a little bit of extra money for each prize winner that they help generate. And there was a guy who's now a writer for Atlantic who used to work in a liquor store that sold lottery tickets. And he was the one that explained that scam to me. He said that's what we used to do, which is wait until the packets were kind of depleted and thought to be heavy in winners, and we would just buy the rest of the packet.
This goes on with pull tabs up in Washington. They have a lot of pull tabs.
Mm-hmm.
I can see on Richard's face that he's thinking of the possibilities of just buying the 7-Eleven again.
Well, first of all, 7-Elevens have a big, price tag for the name, right? For the, but just a liquor store, But I didn't want to get into that business. To me, it looked like a full-time job.
It did sound like a lot of work. Anyway, we've been talking to Mohan Srivastava. Mohan, thank you very much. You were charming again this time as you were back on last July. We thank you very much for sharing your evening with us.
I enjoyed being on. Thank you.
All right. So we have to talk about our sponsors. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anybody else has. Sunday, Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesdays, there is a $500,000 swipe, spin, and win promotion. That is, you play 300 points, go to a kiosk, and spin a virtual wheel. Prizes at the top end are $50 or $25 free play. Bottom end, there's 2,500 points, which is worth $7.50. Free breakfast buffet or $10 restaurant. There are other prizes as well. Through the first 10 spins that Bonnie and I have had, our average, counting food as face value and the mystery gift as worth nothing, our average spin is worth $21 for a $300 of play. So far, it's a small sample, but that's like 7%. So that's not hard to play better than that. And they have now this year it's a random draw, meaning that somebody who plays a lot and somebody who just gets their card for the first time has equal chances at all the prizes. That has not been true in the past, but it is this year. The free video poker class at the South Point has been concluded. Will likely start it again in the fall. At the Palms, the weekly 7 p.m. drawing on Fridays, winners share $10,000 with the top prize of $3,000. You don't need to be there to win, but you do need to claim your prize by midnight. 5 times entries Friday 8 to midnight. Offer 2 times entries between 4 and 6:30 p.m. Friday afternoon. These drawings will conclude through April 24th, after which they'll probably start a new drawing. PFP, Play for Prizes. Through April 10th, tomorrow, if you're listening live, will be Albertsons gift cards starting Monday, April 13th for 2 weeks. There will be Lowe's gift cards. Up to $190 of gift cards per day, Monday through Friday, may be redeemed. You keep your points. Videopoker.com. It's the best place to play a lot of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get corrections on most of the games. It's a good place to practice quick quads, for example. You can get the strategy from me or from Shock's website, but if you want correction, you go to videopoker.com. For most players, you have no idea what a bad player you really are until you have a computer program correcting your error. The game of the week is called Barnyard Poker. This is a triple play game played at 10 coins per line. Periodically, there are 2 bonuses that they increment. You'll see them increment, and every now and then these bonuses explode, and the bonuses are applied equally to all the lines. So if the bonus is 23 when it explodes, the bottom 2 lines will get an 8x multiplier, while the top line gets a 7x multiplier. So with an 8x multiplier, a 45 coin full house gets paid 360. This comes with barnyard sounds. So you hear cows mooing, pigs snorting, chickens clucking, etc. You're going to get more and bigger W2Gs because of the multipliers. There are no strategy variations required to play correctly, and the bonus rounds themselves have positive equity. There will be cherry-picking opportunities if you come across a deserted game with high bonuses. Whether it's a key number of 20, 25, or 30, I don't know. It probably depends on the pay schedule of the underlying game. So the World Series of Poker is coming, which is... and so we're going to be having a lot of poker guests in the near future. We have invitations out to some, and I suspect there will be others. So we're going to be... so, Richard, where can you get our...
Well, first I want to say for those of you there, we have a few listeners who like to listen to the show live. If you are one of them, next Thursday will be our last show at this time slot on this station. So after that, we will start being on Tuesday mornings from 10 to 11, and that'll start on the 21st. And but if you want to have the show delivered to you while you sleep, you can sign up at iTunes or YouTube, Stitcher, or at my website, richardmunchkin.com. If you want to hear any of the past episodes, they're archived at bobdancer.com. We want your questions. Send them to gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com or facebook.com/gamblingwithanedge, or you can tweet them to me at RWM21. So the website where the show is going to be starting on the 21st at 10 o'clock is called Vegas All Net Radio, if you like to listen to the show live. And you can tweet me questions during the show.
All right, everybody. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mohan. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Subscribe to the show in iTunes, and episodes will be delivered to you automatically every week. Archived versions of past shows may be found at bobdancer.com and richardmunchkin.com. We welcome emails at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin are both available on Facebook and welcome your questions. The sponsors for the show are the South Point Hotel, Casino and Spa, the M Resort, the Palms Casino Resort, and the website videopoker.com. Join us again next week for another Gambling with an Edge.